Hello everyone, we are yet here again with a very interesting session on seafarer abandonment and what we have learned so far. And today we will have a very esteemed panelist from International Maritime Organization called IMO. So I'm sure that you'll be immensely benefited by having him and by listening to him. Yeah, easy.
Yeah, there we are. Good to see you,
Yeah.
Mr. Chirag.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you so much, Mr. Yan.
yeah.
And really very pleased to have you here in this session today.
Likewise, very privileged to attend an audience that really is interested in the issues that we're working on also during this summer. There was no day that I was not engaged with seafarers, so it's very good.
Absolutely. I can imagine your job profile and the role you're, such an important role you're playing, which I think I'm sure that you'll be dealing with the seafarers matters on everyday basis.
Yes, but it is always rewarding because you really help people who are in need of it, and so yeah, it's good to be on top of those issues. Also, of course, during the holidays, yeah, you're not permanently focused on it, but yeah, you have to keep track with the developments. So that's a good thing about
Absolutely.
it. Yeah.
So formally, thank you so much once again for joining us today. Before we start, I'll just give a brief introduction of Mr. Boer. Mr. Boer is a senior legal advisor at IMO, and everybody is aware about the International Maritime Organization, the UN body which which provides rules, regulations for the seafaring world, and we are all aware about the various regulations, rules that is in place, and that protects. It also protects the welfare of seafarers by various means. Mr. Boyer has been responsible in the IMO Secretariat, also looking after the abandonment of seafarers and also towards fair treatment of seafarers, which is a very important role that he plays out here. And that's how ISWAN is very closely connected with him in his day-to-day work. Mr. Boyer has been also working on international and his country, Netherlands. He comes from the Netherlands, and has worked on in different roles nationally and internationally. And he's been obtained a degree in law from the university in Amsterdam, and also from University of Exeter in Devon. So it has been a very enriching experience what he brings in today, and I'm sure our seafarers are going to immensely benefit out of it from his very vast experience on the subject. Today we are going to be talking about that seafarers abandonment issues and where we are on it right now, what we have learned so far, and what we can further do. So I'm sure the seafarers who are listening to us in this session will definitely take the feedback to them. I think this will be a very important session for them to learn about more and to take the good practices, what they should be doing, and when they join the ships, and how, if they find themselves in that situation, what they need to do. And so many other things will be there in the next 30 minutes. So stay tuned, guys, and please put up your questions in the chat box so that we can pick it up after the session. So thank you once again, Mr. Boyer, to join us today. And my first question for you today is that what do we actually mean by the seafarer abandonment? And can you also please share some of the statistics on abandonment cases?
Yeah, no, that's a very correct point of start. What actually is an abandonment seafarer? There are some definitions for that being used. It started actually with some instruments developed jointly by ILO and IMO in guidelines. And later that was further formalized by having an introduction of the issue of abandonment in the Maritime Labour Convention, which was established in 2006. In general, the terminology used refers to that there is a severance of ties between the seafarer and the ship owner. And there are some examples being given for that, but it is not an exclusive list. But severance of ties is the main concept, but it can be proven. For example, when there is more than 2 months not being paid wages, when there are no provisions being rendered, fresh water, food, but also fuel for heating the cabins, and such main deliverances not being rendered may create also a very bad ambience for seafarers to live in. But it's actually any circumstance that is not beneficial to the welfare of the seafarers. So each of these examples can be, it's true that there is actually a case of abandonment. I hope that gives you the picture. It is also just when there is no more than be paid 2 months of wages, that there is already abandonment. But most of the time that goes hand in hand with other circumstances. Yeah, about statistics, it's quite indicating how bad the pandemic actually was in 2020. Then there was suddenly an increase of cases by more than 100%. There were 85 cases, and the years before there was already a kind of spike of cases because after the entry into force of amendments to the Maritime Labour Convention in 2017, we saw on a yearly basis about 20 cases being reported. But then after the entry into force of the Maritime Labour Convention amendment, which actually introduced also a kind of solution for abandonment cases, having at least 4 months of wages being paid in case of abandonment by the insurance, no compulsory insurance. We saw a spike of 20 to 40 cases that years after. So there were about 40 cases being reported, up to 50. But then in 2020, suddenly there were 85 cases being reported. Last year, of 2021, there were 95 cases being reported. And up so far, I just calculated, we have already 81 or 82 cases actually being reported already about over the first 7 months of this year. So the problem seems to be increasing tremendously. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that could be also because there could be lack of awareness among seafarers on how to report, whom to report such incidents. And as we progress ahead, probably more number of seafarers will be more better aware about that they can report these cases at the ILO and IMO international database on abandoned seafarers, whereby their cases can be taken up expeditiously by the organizations.
Yeah, on that issue, Mr. Chirag, it's important to note that reporting of cases can be done by organizations that have consultative status with ILO and with IMO. So individual seafarers have to report to those instances in the first place. And then it's up to those organizations. It's mainly actually ITF that is reporting, but it can also be member states. We see in many occasions that Liberia is reporting many of cases. So they play an active role actually of using the instrument actually to resolve the case. It also shows that they are, as a flag state, actually working on those solutions. Which is good, but it is a far minority of cases that are being reported by the flag state. The bulk of cases are being reported by ITF and also ISWAN, and the charities in general can make use of those organizations also to report those cases. So 95% of the cases actually goes these days through ITF. ICS used to take it up for ISWAN, but it is these days more an issue coordinated by ITF.
Sure. Well understood. Thank you. My next question is, like, what are the early signs, warning signs that a seafarer can see about an abandonment is coming on board, and how they can avoid such a situation?
Yeah, I still think many cases are still unpredictable. It can happen to also very bona fide ships by circumstance, bona fide ship owners. But those cases are regularly also resolved quite easily if you compare it to the more severe cases. But in general, early signs are actually a delay in payments. And when it's only about the payments, we see patterns that there is a kind of repetitions of those delays. So meanwhile, seafarers get being paid when there have been delays. Then later on, the situation deteriorates again. So when a seafarer is not being paid for more than 2 months, I think it is quite reasonable to report that to charities, to ITF, actually, to get a better picture also about their own situation. Most of the time, it also goes together with a delay in rendering provisions, services at port. But then the seafarer is already on board the ship. And there's not much you can then actually do to directly avoid that situation. But still, I think it's always good to be there in early stage, and certainly about payment of wages. If there is already 2 months delay, and that continues, the provisions in the NLC provide for that the compulsory insurer provides for 4 months. So actually you have 2 months left for complaining, for reporting, actually, to get the less consequences of the abandonment when it is about the payment of wages. So to be alert is very important. Another issue, and that's more dealing with how to avoid abandonment in the first place. What we see is that there are many companies which offer jobs which are not all the time that trustworthy, and it will be good already anticipating to check the validity of the management agency, because there many times there already is an indication that might not be the best perspective for the future of the seafarer. There are also kind of offers about when you arrive at the ship, that then there is waiting a kind of fortune when you just wait when the ship is abandoned, that it will be released by courts. Actually, ship managing agents actually bluntly advertise that way, and then I would like to warn seafarers not to engage in that, because you trap in a trick where it's hard to come out of it. And there are many cases in that sense on the web, on the database on abandonment of seafarers. So we have those examples.
Yeah. No, thanks. I think that's very valuable. I think for the seafarers, I think I'll just recap what you just mentioned out here is seafarers just you need to look into if your company is not paying you wages from 1 or 2 months and you feel like the company is not taking care of you. Be alert. Seek the help of the charities or the ITF about it, and always join the ships through proper channels. Don't look out for easy options to go on ship, bypassing the laws, the rules, and everything. Go through the proper channels and proper shipping companies with established shipping companies. That ways you can avoid of being in an abandonment state. But having said that, any seafarer or any ship can be found in terms of these issues, because it's all about the bankruptcy issues, or if you go about the owner's gotten bankrupt because of various reasons, they could also fall into such a situation. But more or less, we have seen and observed also by being part of working in ISWAN is that seafarers who normally join ships through not so good planning agents or not proper companies who are not taking care of the seafarers, they often find themselves in that difficult situation. Mr. Boyer, I would like to now take on the next question is like, what are the other various measures been initiated under MLC 2006 as amended, and which are in place to protect the seafarers from this abandonment issues?
Yeah, well, the main feature that was introduced in 2014 by the amendments then of the Maritime Labour Convention was that in case there's an abandonment, that there is a fallback to compulsory insurance. That's quite a direct resolution. Other important features that were introduced is that the cost for repatriation in case of a ship owner that does not upheld those obligations, then the flag state becomes responsible. And if the flag state, the port state, may take over the duties in case the flag state does not fulfill that obligation. And if that is not a possibility, the seafarer state has also a duty to step in as a third way of rendering provisions for the repatriation. But that's only dealing with repatriation, not with payment of wages. So in many of these instances where there is an abandonment and not wages being paid, seafarers don't like to go home without being remunerated. So they stay on board actually and hope for better solutions. But in many cases, it might even be better to not waste time too long on a ship, which might in the end not turning out the wages being paid. That's not in all circumstances the case, because there might be a good perspective that a ship under for sale on which liens have been vested, by which there is a preferential possibility to have the wages to be remunerated by the succeeds of the for sale, but then that those can be paid. So that might be a good solution in cases, but on that the direct advice of the development organization should be sought, and should be there. Should be a good advice be made available. So another reason to liaise directly with the charities, trade unions, the organizations.
Sure. I think that's very important for all seafarers who are listening to us today. The 2017 amendment, which brought in this compulsory insurance for every ship which it needs to have, and so that can protect the seafarers from being abandoned for a long period of time. You can approach your flag state or the P&I club to avail this insurance, and you can, at least they will be able to give you 4 months of wages and to repatriate you back home as well. So please, when you go on ship, or if you're on ship right now, ensure that you find out the place where this such a certificate is available. take a note of it, whether the certificate is not expired, it's valid, and the insurance is provided, what are the details of that in case, for example, God forbid, if tomorrow you are in an abandonment situation, you should know that who issued that certificate and whom to approach to in case you get into that trouble. That's very valuable information given to us, and I'm sure most of you would be aware, but anyhow, please look out for that information on your ship as well when you join the ship. My next question for you, Mr. Boer, is about that. Please share the role of the Port State Authority and the Maritime Administration of the country where the seafarers belongs to towards safeguarding the well-being of seafarers and those who are abandoned on the vessels.
Yeah,
Very big question which I've put up, but maybe in brief if you can.
These are very valid points. Actually, it's good to shine some light on those responsibilities and obligations. Also, because there are some projects ongoing in IMO, actually having more focus on the role of those maritime authorities from the flag state, but also the port state and the seafarer state. Well, to start with the flag administration, because the ship owners themselves are the first responsible party, but that is of course being supervised by the relevant authority, which is the flag administration. So the flag administration has a role that the ship owner is fulfilling its obligations under the Maritime Labour Convention. It's very important. So when there are cases of not keeping up with those standards, it's very good that the flag state is aware of that. So that's really the first point of contact in such instances. And the flag state, of course, has an obligation under the Maritime Labour Conventions to implement that ship owners are fulfilling the obligation. So that's a direct obligation. So that's more in general the role of the flag state. Flag state also has responsibility regarding the safety of the ship. That's the Maritime Safety Convention, one of the pillars of marine operations. But that goes hand in hand, of course, also with the obligations under the safety of standards of trading and watchkeeping. STCW convention, because in order to have a good welfare on board the crew and also safety, seafarers need to have the right qualifications and to be able to fulfill all the requirements regarding safety. So that's the role also of the flag state, to take care of that, which is in the interest of the seafarer themselves directly. So when it comes to issues in ports of abandonment cases and also other issues relating to the welfare of seafarers, well, some ports take the tendency to use safety as an argument that seafarers, even if the ship is abandoned, the seafarers are abandoned, are not allowed to leave the ship. But that's still, also in ports, is still an issue for the flag state. The flag state is also responsible for the safety in ports, according to the Maritime Safety Convention, the Safety of Life at Sea Convention. There is a requirement to have a minimum safety crew on board. That's a responsibility of the flag state, also in ports. So that's something to negotiate between flag states and port state. And actually that issue is now the subject of how to have better arrangements regarding solutions of abandonment to have a better idea what those responsibilities actually entail. So we have seen some severe cases in ports where the safety was being used not to leave the crew, but the crew actually needed to be repatriated because they were not fit for purpose for safety at all. So you can see that there is a kind of interplay between flag state and port state in that. What also is important is that port states have the possibility for an inspection. Flag states can authorize an inspection, but in cases of severe intervention with the welfare of seafarers, it's also possible to ask the port state for a inspection, port state control, and that's an important element also in the Maritime Labour Convention. So that can be used also as part of the solution. So ports also play an important role, but it has to, in the context of the Maritime Labour Convention, to be directed more to the welfare on board, and when it comes to safety. Of course, there is an interest there, but that should also be referred back to the flag administration. And of course, the role of the seafarer state, where the seafarers are national from, cannot be underestimated because, consular sections of diplomatic missions can play an important role of having the right focus on the interest of the seafarers in the host states. That's an important feature, and actually, that's also key in many solutions of abandonment cases that we've seen on the database. And actually, when there is a abandonment being reported, we notify those three different kind of authorities actually to make them aware and also to give them the opportunity to share their views on the case. And that's all being regulated by procedures that have been agreed already far in advance of the establishment of the Maritime Labour Convention. Actually, it's also on the basis of a joint ad hoc working group between IMO and ILO that established these procedures. And they can be working very effective, but we also have to acknowledge that it is a kind of diplomatic way of finding solutions. So you have to be careful not to exaggerate the problems, but to really find solutions of those.
Absolutely. And that's a very challenging task what the ILO and IMO has, as you rightly mentioned, about taking all the partners together into finding a solution. Sometimes, as seafarers, when we are looking from outside, we also get very emotional messages from the seafarers. And I'm sure that some of the seafarers have also put a lot of questions in the chat box. I'm seeing that they're getting emotional about some of the things. But we also need to understand that we have to work diplomatically. We have to work together with all the partners, all the states, to ensure that they realize their responsibilities, and every member, every partner plays their own part to help the seafarers come out of such a crisis. And I'm sure most of the partners are also doing that to ensure that the well-being of seafarers is protected and they have been looked after well in going forward. Mr. Boer, I have just one more last question, and this is just from the seafarers' point of view. That what are the good practices that you would like to advise to seafarers so that they minimize the risk of being abandoned? I know some of the things you have already mentioned about the shipping companies, that how they need to check. But if there are anything else you would like to share about the young prospective seafarers who are searching for jobs, and what are the good things that they should keep in mind?
Well, it's very good that you raise this, Mr. Chirag, because awareness is key to not finding yourself in circumstances that you don't want to wish in with. So to be alert is very important. Actually, to be advised well, get in contact with the relevant trade organizations. Also, have a look at the IMO website, on which there's a specific sections dealing in focus with seafarer issues. So it also points into direction on existing cases, what goes in it, what goes wrong, but also how we can try to resolve. But the main thing is to be well informed and to be connected, and to also be alert when you have the sense that things are not up to your own standards. Verify and contact relevant organizations to check whether the company you are contracting with is bona fide. And that's easily to find out if you contact a charity, IETF, ISWAN, and also the Maritime Administration, because the Maritime Administration is involved. They also wish to have good welfare on board. It's all in the interest of safety. But if you don't trust, check. That would be my advice. And not let yourself be seduced by nice words and promises and internet advertisements, because the modern world with the easy access on online information makes you even more aware that you should be aware that there are risks involved. So please check with those organizations that you know that exist and have a good standing. That would be my advice.
Thank you very much. I think, Dr. Bird, I think that's very important part which you were, and then what ISWAN is also trying to do through its number of series of contents we are putting on social media to make the seafarers a bit more aware about what are the things that they should look in for before joining the ship, what are the information they should gather and ask their crewing companies or the manning agents before they sign up any recruitment contract. So guys, please be aware. Please be vigilant when you are joining the ship, especially for the first time, and ask your contacts, ask your seniors, ask your friends more about that information, and don't believe in the online advertisements floating around on different social media platforms. Do a proper research before you take up any employment. Otherwise, you can get into situations like this very easily. So thank you so much, Mr. Boer, for joining us today. It was such a lovely interactions with you today. But before you go, we would like to take up a few questions which are there from the seafarers who have joined us this session. And if you're, with your permission, can I take on the first question?
Yeah, of course. Happy to do so.
Sure. So the first question is from a seafarer called 7995. I'm sorry, his name has not been floated here. But the question is like, he's asking about the flag of convenience, the difference basically about a flag of convenience and the proper flags. And he has quoted the ship called Sai RM, which has an Indian flag, has been also abandoned in Sri Lanka from 3+ years. And also on the flag of convenience, the role of flag of convenience in abandonment cases. So how it is, both of them differs?
Yeah, we have to deal with international shipping. So flag states can be very different from the economical interest behind the exploration of the ship. That's not something that IMO can do a lot about, I'm afraid. Otherwise than actually to be transparent about those situations. But also open registries, international registries, which can also be very bona fide. Many bona fide countries have second registers for international business companies to be flagged in. I personally think it's always good to be transparent Actually, there is a lot of transparency all around us because we can check all that information on information systems, on IMO cases. It says who are the registered owners, where they are registered, and even they can be registered in other countries than actually where their offices are. So, yeah, join the world of shipping. There's a lot of commercial reasons for having all those offshore kind of registration being made possible. But that's not, what I would like to see as solving the problem, because actually, when there is a flag state, when it is an open register, when it is a international register or flag of convenience, as some may call it, they are responsible. So with the provisions that exist in international instruments, we have to focus with these obligations to those entities, to those states. And that's what we do also on the database. We make everybody aware of those situations, but we are not criticizing it because that's the way that the international community has organized shipping. But we have to deal with it, and if we do it in a transparent way, there are ways also to solve those issues. That's what we're doing. So that's in short my response, which is, I think, quite a diplomatic attitude. But we work forward actually for in the interest of seafarers to get solutions, and that's the best way to deal. And also in these countries with have these open registers, we have good liaisons, and it's better to be in communicating senses with each other to solve these issues than to start quarreling about it. That's not our issue. Our issue is to solve cases and to make life better for seafarers. That's our aim, that's our mission, and that's what we find a lot of empathy with doing that way. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I'll just take one more question here very quickly. Like, why it takes months or years to solve an abandonment case? And then the second following question is about why we are not able to put the ship owners behind bars for not fulfilling their responsibility.
Yeah, well, of course, what has been tried with having a relatively short period of 4 months of payment of wages by insurance is actually to get from all sides as fast as possible solution within this 4 months, because there is a threat, of course, after 4 months you don't get paid anymore. So it's also an induction actually to have the case be reported as early as possible. So that some cases can take a long time is because they were very late actually reported. The case has been irritated so much, has become so inhumanitarian that there has already been a long time passed. So it's also in the interest of everybody to directly, as soon as there is a sense this is not correct, to report, because there's a key solution. And that's also the reason, because it doesn't happen, that those cases last a long time. And then when there are legal procedures needed actually to get proceed from for sale of a ship, that can take a long time, because the judicial systems of countries do not work that hard, that fast, because also all sides have to be investigated, have to be discussed, and there are appeal procedures possible. So that can take a long time. So it's better in all senses to avoid that. And that's actually our aim with the system of reporting, to be a front of all this even more complicated and even more judicial, complicated procedures. That's the short answer why it takes so long. And it's also, of course, because seafarers who really don't get paid see that as the last hope actually to get something, and you cannot force those people to leave. That's what we are not also pressing. We try to solve it, even if it takes longer than you would like it to happen. But we continue still being there for safeguarding the interest of seafarers. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Boer, for today's very informative session and your views on all of these very crucial questions. And we respect it the way how ILO and IMO has been really working hard to expedite resolving many of such cases. We have seen that such cases, when they have been highlighted at the ILO international database, how quickly these are being followed up and how quickly they have, many of them have been resolved till now. So many thanks, and really salute you for all the work you and your team are doing around it. And you are hopes for a number of seafarers across the world. So thank you for doing all that. And again, wish you all a very good luck.
So thank you, Mr. Chirag, and you're most welcome. And it's a pleasure actually to do this. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for
Bye.
your time.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you.